we're still under the mutually assured destruction doctrine, which assumes rational actors on both sides of the hitting the big red buttons. But human beings are not rational. We are very irrational people in charge, and that's something that is very, very dangerous in the current world. We should actively be looking at some of the defensive mechanisms for these things so that nuclear weapons aren't as scary as they currently are. We do have the technologies for this, but we need to be looking a lot more into that. All right, there's also
Okay.
talk moments.
Well,
How
Chris,
go
the
ahead,
other thing
Alex.
about nukes that most people don't understand, one little tactical nuke is literally the size of a couch and can take out
Yep,
up to about 5 square miles.
of current architecture, yeah. So civic defensive measures, if you look at some of the Nelson Rockefeller stuff he was trying to push in the 1950s and 60s, specifically one of the things is that if you're below ground, most of the stuff above ground just gets wiped out. But the problem is that essentially they focus so much on just the initial events, not on the how do you replant crops and stuff that came afterwards. The idea of losing that much territory was so devastating to people. They're like, we're not even going to think about it. Um, what is interesting in the decades since, we've actually learned quite a bit about how to make nuke-proof structures, how to create things that can survive high-energy events. Most structures, like earthquake codes, are not designed to do such things. Same things where buildings essentially are made to be earthquake-proof. You can make structures that are nuke-proof. We're not willing to have those conversations right now because it significantly impacts our real estate prices, which is the thing that actually determined whether or not COVID's over or not, is whether or not essentially office real estate is occupied and whether or not essentially the payments can that undergird a financial system is actually intact. So we're not discussing the defensive measures of this specifically because of our current social and economic structure, but that's not to do with technical stuff. Anyways, I don't want to distract the room with things, but it's a breakout conversation. If nukes are on the table with Putin with things, we should really be looking more in defensives because they do exist historically, and it should be part of the conversation.
Come on, Chris, we have 33 Thomas Street in New York City. We know that's nuke proof.
We'll just all hole up in that one building.
Yeah, they call it the Death Star building because the building has no lights.
You don't have to build it that tall, but yeah, exactly.
Okay, so the first story for today, first tech story. Let's jump right into it. We need the air horn. Here we go. Got the theme going. It's from a lot of sources: NBC News, CNN, New York Times, CNN, Politico, NPR, The Hill, Washington Post, Engadget, CNBC, Bloomberg, Rolling Stone, Today.com. And here, I'm just reading the different headlines of the different ones here. Let me read you some of them. Here we go. And then Meta is the source of this, so we'll read the Meta one because all the others are just regurgitating the Meta press release. It says, NBC News. Facebook says it took down China-based accounts that tried to interfere in U.S. midterms. That's right now. Right? Okay. Next is CNET. Facebook parent Meta says fake accounts from China posed as Americans. New York Times. Meta removes Chinese effort to influence U.S. elections. CNN. Meta shuts down covert influence campaigns that says were run from China and Russia. Politico says grotesque Russian disinformation campaigns mimic Western news sites. You get the idea. Rolling Stone. Chinese trolls are attempting Russian-style meddling in U.S. elections, Facebook says. Facebook says it uncovered Chinese election interference. Right. Now, I ask you, yet again, we have rather conclusive, strong evidence that China is using its resources and social media platforms like Facebook. I can guarantee you it's not exclusive to Facebook. I can guarantee you they're doing it on Twitter as well. This is common sense. And they don't own Facebook or Twitter. They do own TikTok. Do we imagine that they might be doing it on TikTok? Well, go ahead and take a little time amongst yourself to ponder this incredibly difficult question. If Facebook is saying...
But they have kids on TikTok. They wouldn't do it with the kids, not the children.
Because Taylor Lorenz claimed that China's not doing this on TikTok.
Can you be a nation state and does not do this
What's
stuff?
the question? Sorry, I the question.
It's rhetorical.
So let's go
But
ahead.
Tyler, isn't TikTok just announced that it will ban the election fundraising?
Say
I
again.
mean, TikTok has this election fundraising ban on that social
Oh, right.
platform.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
last week's news.
Okay.
But
Good.
Tyler, sorry, as a foreigner, not American, I have this question. It's for the midterm. It's not like the presidential election. It's easy to tell who the Chinese government supports. So in this kind of election, uh, why they use this to influence? I mean, they must have a target to support, right?
Right.
So
Let's read the
Oh,
article.
there's too many candidates, right? It's like they can't, they'd have to put a big staff on identifying all the candidates so they would know how to exert their influence.
Right.
That might be too expensive.
So here's the Facebook's version of this, which Cheryl kindly pinned to the top of the room. Removing coordinated, inauthentic behavior from China and Russia. So ambiguous. um, and this is written by Ben Nimmo, the global threat. Whoa. Wow.
Bless
Thank you.
you.
Oh, pardon me.
no, no.
Give me 2 seconds. I'm sorry. I'll be right back.
God bless you, Tyler.
Hold on.
Okay, let me just click on it.
He has to get a tissue.
And yeah, hold on.
So Cheryl, here's the
Yes.
interesting part. They're sitting
Mm-hmm.
here saying they're doing all this stuff, but yet they can't figure out how to recover somebody's account if it's hacked.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Okay.
none of their stuff works. So how are they sure that things are accurate and things are not done through proxy and what's real
There's
and what's
just
not?
there's just 3 point takeaways here. We took down two unconnected networks in China and Russia for violating our policy against coordinated, inauthentic behavior. Second one,
Cheryl.
the Chinese origin inference operation ran across multiple social media platforms and
Oh, wait, wait,
was
oh,
the
wait, wait,
first
wait,
to
whoa, whoa,
target
whoa, whoa, whoa.
US.
Hey, wow, hang on.
Woo!
Hang on. Did I not say that, of course, this is not exclusive to Facebook? And
Yeah, of
here,
course.
Facebook itself says they only list 3 points in this article at the
Yeah.
top of the article. The takeaways, they call them takeaways. There's 3 takeaways. Cheryl was just reading takeaway number 2. I just want to read it nice and slow for Miss Taylor Lorenz so that she can absorb this reality. Takeaway number 2 of 3. The Chinese origin influence operation ran across multiple social media platforms and was the first one to target U.S. domestic policies ahead of the 2022 midterms and Czechia's foreign policy towards China and Ukraine. Okay, now, which social media platforms do we imagine that China is running disinformation campaigns? Go. Discuss amongst yourselves.
Meta
Google,
and Facebook.
Google search.
Now, I'll give you a hint. They own one.
TikTok.
TikTok.
Well, holy smokes, we got a winner. Ding, ding. We got a winner, everybody. Somebody figured it out. Holy cow. So if
No
Facebook
brainer.
Messi
itself,
likes taking that wins.
Facebook itself is saying, listen, they're doing it to us. This is not, there's no question. We disarmed it. It's real. And we're not the only ones they're doing it on. And how many social networks do you know of that are owned by China that are very popular in the US? This, and Taylor Lorenz says China's not using TikTok in this way. Are you kidding me? Dear Taylor, what planet are you on that how much Taylor, how much money are they paying you? You can't be that stupid. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you're not that stupid. You're being paid. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you cannot be that stupid. I'm sure you're not. There's no question you're this is not an issue of stupidity. This is a question of you. It's far more likely in my mind that you are compromised in some way.
I agree.
So it says China. Here's what we
Maybe she
found.
has relatives in China, Kyla.
The Russian network, the largest of
Yeah,
its kind.
either that. She's being blackmailed or paid.
It says, here's what we found. China. We took down a small network that originated in China and targeted the United States, the Czech Republic, and to a lesser extent, Chinese and French speaking audiences around the world. It included 4 largely separate and short lived efforts, each focused on a particular audience at different times between the fall of 2021 and mid September 2022. In the United States, it targeted people on both sides of the political spectrum, criticizing the state's support of Ukraine in the war with Russia. Wow, that's interesting because that's further evidence that China's actually really backing Russia. Of course, we know that, but the fact that Facebook is spelling it out in such clear terms is case closed. So, and its impact on the against using the criticism to caution against antagonizing China. Each cluster of accounts, around half a dozen each, posted content at low volumes during working hours in China, rather than when their target audiences would typically be awake. Oh, wow, interesting. Few people engaged with it, and some of those who did called it out as fake. Our automated system took down the number of accounts and fake pages, blah, blah, blah. Okay. There you go. Now the question is, how much is China paying Taylor, or what kind of compromat do they have on Miss Lorenz? Your move, Taylor. You cannot be this stupid. I do not think you're stupid. I know you're not stupid. You're a very intelligent person. There's no way that you can possibly believe what you're saying with regard to China not meddling, not using TikTok, the one social network they have and control and sit on the board of. The government has a board seat on the company. It's
But Tyler,
yes.
that's not how journalists work.
Okay.
How they work is it's all about their sources.
Right.
So how, I mean, I'm not denying that she's compromised somehow, but she is compromised by access to her sources.
Got it.
She has,
You're right.
she has to say certain things or believe
Completely
certain
dismissed.
people. It's
You're right.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you
I
for.
was thinking
Hold
the
on,
same
Aaron.
thing perhaps.
Aaron, I just want to applaud Dr. Francine for pointing out how the journalistic sausage gets made. Because she's exactly right. Journalists, good sources, as Mark Gurman well knows, is the bread and butter of the game, right?
right. Where it's good sources make your career. So you don't burn your sources in any way, shape, or
Right,
form. And that
right.
includes saying what they have told you and saying that that's the, quote, the truth, unquote.
Right.
So in that way, she protects the source for a next story. And by the way, I taught journalism. Hello.
Yeah. Well
So
noted.
I
Go ahead.
perhaps, okay, she's being fed by a source and she's just reiterating according to the source. But then in my mind, I was like, she can't be living under a rock just to trust the source blindly, because if she's reading news or have any, connection with reality, she would know how TikTok has been in the past, this entire history, and,
So
so many.
how it
No,
works,
can
so
I?
how that works, Aaron,
So she's
is she
intentionally, sorry, so
no
she's
no no
intentionally just doing this so that the source
n-
is kind of validated.
no no. So, second source.
Dr. Francine, we can't hear you
Source
well.
Francine, we can't
that
hear you. Hold on. I'm going to mute her.
Are you
if you can't
compromised too,
Demo,
Dr.
find
Francine?
this,
Yeah,
Demo, I
Can
she
think
I
got
you're.
just?
compromised.
yes.
Francine, hold on one sec. Let's give you a minute to see if your mic come back. Demolaire, what do you want to say?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to like come back and because we've spoken about this journalist and source integrity topic for quite some time now, and I always love this topic, but based on what Aaron's saying, it's like you can't necessarily say what TikTok is doing as like that's a colloquialism based upon what people see in different areas. So you can't say as fact that this is what TikTok is doing. It could be a certain segment of TikTok because just as we know, TikTok in China is not the same as TikTok in America per se. So when we're talking about sources, these are valued people who have particular pieces of information, and you run on those things, right? But obviously, like Dr. Francine said, you don't say it's the total truth. It's what we've got from the
Well,
source.
what you do is if two sources confirm it, then you can be sure it's true. And if you can't get two sources to confirm it, then you don't print it. So
Yeah,
she printed what her sources told her. That's all. And if her two sources told her that, then that's her truth. You know what I'm saying? It may not be the truth for TikTok all over the place, and she may be compromised, but burning your sources is a really, because you're
Right.
not living under a rock, as Tyler would say.
Right.
And you know that out in the larger world, every other social media platform is trying to influence elections. Um, you cannot print that unless you can get sources to say it for you. You
yeah,
can't just make stuff up.
yeah. It's just like getting corroborating evidence, right? That's more so what they
Just
have to
like
do.
getting corroborating evidence. Exactly.
Yeah, and the story's always evolving. So unless something truly happened that is a like breaking story, you can't necessarily say, "Oh, this is what's happened all over the place."
Okay, we're moving on. Moving on. Next topic is from Bloomberg. FTX wins the auction for bankrupt crypto brokerage Voyager Digital's assets with a bid valued at about $1.4 billion, including an additional consideration worth about $111 million. So the digital asset exchange, founded by billionaire, or yeah, on paper, in crypto, Sam Bankman-Fried won the auction for the assets of bankrupt crypto brokerage Voyage Digital. Okay, so congrats to Sam. The next is Robinhood
Hold on,
releases.
hold on.
Okay,
Sorry. So, what does that mean? That means the people who invested in that, Voyager will get their money back, or still, it's all gone.
No, it means that Sam Bankman Fried can rebuild the business and make more money.
Yeah, but my
And at
question is
some
about
point,
the people who.
at some point later on, they'll get back pennies on the dollar because what they put it in at when they put money into Voyager Digital is not what it's worth now. Or, I don't know, every case is different.
okay. Next topic. Robinhood releases its non-custodial Polygon-based crypto wallet called geniusly branded Robinhood Wallet. They spent weeks coming up with that one, I'm sure. It's now in
No, it
beta.
just tells you how little free cash they had because if they had had more free cash, they would have engaged a naming firm. But because they are not doing so well right now, they had to do it inside.
Robinhood Wallet. It's now in beta with 10,000 beta users who signed up in May. They've been steadily moving away from its original walled garden approach to crypto over the past year, and now they have a non-custodial Polygon-based crypto wallet. Better late than never. So the next is from CoinDesk. There's a study that in January of this year, 62% of Bitcoin mining electricity came from fossil fuels, contradicting the Bitcoin Mining Council's estimate that 59% is sustainable. Because according to this study, well, what would that be? 38% is sustainable if 62 is fossil fuels, well, you could have others that are also not sustainable. So, to be continued on that one, the greenification of crypto mining. Next from Bloomberg, as the Optus hacker appears to release data of 10,000 customers, Optus CEO Kelly Baer says the Australian police are investigating a ransom demand. This is the first I've heard of this. It's a mobile phone company in Australia called Optus who got hacked. And the hackers love hitting the phone companies, as you well know if you're a regular tech newsers, because that's some sweet, sweet opportunity to kind of roll the snowball. And it gives you a cloak of authenticity when you can appear to be coming from a telecom towards the user. So the next is from CoinDesk. Chicago-based Strike, a Bitcoin payment service that uses the Lightning Network for faster transaction, raises $80 million. CNBC says that Meta begins testing a single interface to manage Facebook and Instagram accounts, finally, and streamlines registration to help users create accounts on both services. Good on them. Next up, California, New York, and other states take actions against crypto lender Nexo, from sending cease and desists to suing, focusing on interest-bearing accounts. Yeah, well, they want to tax that shit. So that makes sense. Substack launches Reader for the web with search, keyboard shortcuts, dark mode recommendations, and an RSS feed feature for non-Substack publications. So it's a return of RSS coming to Substack. A new reading experience waits for you on Substack.com. So they're bundling an RSS reader into Substack. Flatfile, which automates onboarding, structuring, raises $50 million from Packer Global. Cloud storage startup Wasabi raises $250 million. Chinese startup Enreal, which is doing AR glasses, launches its new $379 AR glasses in the US, adding iPhone support with a $59 dongle. So here comes some consumer AR for Christmas. Wired says a look at the vote on the new head of the UN's International Telecommunications Union between the US and Russian candidate and its implications for the open web. UN countries are preparing to pick a new head of the ITU, which meets in Geneva at the most boring event on planet Earth that I have ever been to. And I go to events professionally as a professional tech conference organizer myself. And the ITU, the UN's ITU event, which is the International Telecommunications Union, I attended that one about 5 years ago. Oh my dear Lord! Oh sweet Jesus! It was like being in a terrible nightmare of an event. I could not believe. I felt like I was in 1970 at a fax machine conference. That's how crusty and dusty the ITU meeting is in Geneva. Oh my Lord! Boy, is that some boring stuff. But they actually decide some rather important stuff around telecommunications standards, and they debate the standards of the interwebs. And so the U.S. Wants things to go its way, and it's with Starlink in their pocket, and they want to push that, their standards, and they want to weaponize standards against Russia. So they want to kick Russia out of the internet, basically. Long story short. So, yeah.
Excluding
So,
China as well, or just Russia?
say again?
They also
I
want to
think the vote
exclude
is between a
China.
Russian and an American.
There's a U.S. candidate and a Russian candidate to be the
Oh,
new head of the ITU, which could have tremendous impact on whose standards, whose will gets, more favorable treatment, as you could imagine. Margaret Vestager took to Twitter to say, ITU is here to ensure that digital connectivity benefits us all, and we need strong leadership to deliver this together with the EU member states. I support uh, who's this person that she supports for the next leader of the ITU. Margaret would know because she represents the EU's interests in these regards. She supports Thomas, who's a candidate for Deputy Secretary General of the ITU. Thomas Lam. This looks like a Finnish last name. Where's he? He's Lithuanian. Okay, so she's supporting the Lithuanian candidate on the EU side. Okay, lovely. So the next is a subreddit with 1.5 million members, which is called Political Humor, challenges Texas content moderation law by mandating that comments include Greg Abbott is a little piss baby in the comments. Last year, I tried to create a test suite of websites that any new internet regulation ought to be tested against. So he's going to test the mettle of the Texas lawmakers and the content moderation law mandated by Greg Abbott by mandating that all the comments include Greg Abbott as a little piss baby. And let's see what happens. To be continued. Other Vice is reporting that text-to-image generation systems like DALL-E and Midjourney use datasets built by scraping images without explicit permission, and it's not easy to opt out. Remember how I said the journalists are going to, put up a fuss about these things because they know their head is next in line on the wall of occupations and professions that'll be challenged by AIs of this sort. Samsung launches a co-branded Visa card in India, offering 10% cash back to customers buying Samsung products. South Korea's science minister says a sense of crisis grips the chip industry. Gee, I wonder what he's referring to. As the country passed legislation in August to boost its global competitiveness. And if you're a regular tech newser, you know exactly what this crisis regarding the chip industry is all about. And Korea's caught right in the middle because they do a lot of business with China. And the West is saying, you're not going to join Team Dark Side, are you? And ultimately, I really doubt they will. But Korea is absolutely one of the very few legitimate heavyweights in the space. And let's all keep our fingers crossed that they join the good side in this grand decoupling between kind of most poignantly epitomized by China and the US on each side. And China's doing everything they can to try and cajole Korea into staying on good terms with China and everything else, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Next up, Netflix plans to open a new game studio in Helsinki, built from scratch, and led by ex-Zynga Vice President General Manager Marco Lestika, which sounds like a Finnish name as well, and that's probably why he's opening it in Helsinki, because by rights he should open it in Stockholm, where which is really the capital of gaming in Europe and one of the capitals of gaming globally. I struggle to think of another town that has more game development prowess than Stockholm, honestly. The Marina del Rey area comes to mind, but Stockholm is just in a category all its own with game development at this point. But Helsinki's no slouch as well. The Finns deserve a lot of credit. The next is Walmart debuts metaverse experiences called Walmart Land. I know you couldn't wait, and it's finally arrived. This is the metaverse we've been waiting for, where we can stroll down the aisles and see very large people with their pants hung low, wearing wife beaters in the metaverse, dragging around their redhead stepchildren down aisle 5. I can't wait because I would love to spend my weekends in actual Walmarts watching uh, humans devolve back to Cambrian times, but that's not easy to do from where I am. But now I can, thanks to the metaverse. I can just slap on that headset and go to Walmart land and experience humans falling back into single digit IQ land, which, by the way, that was the other alternative name they were going with, single digit IQ land. But they decided to call it Walmart land for their own reasons that I'm sure they'll reveal later. But now we have Walmart land. Thank God. Thank sweet Jesus, we're finally here. The promise of the metaverse has finally truly arrived. Now that Walmart land is here, and Walmart's universe in Roblox, which it calls a testing ground to try and reach younger shoppers. So here we go. If to anyone who says the metaverse ain't the future, I got two words: Walmart land. Case closed.
What were they called? The Best Buy land?
Whew. I'm sure Cal. We can ping Cal in to ask him. Cal, I know you're listening to the live stream. Go ahead and send me a DM. Geekverse, perhaps. Geek
Best
Squad.
buyers.
Geek Squad land. Okay, according to sources, crypto derivatives exchange Deribit raises 40 million. Researchers found 75 apps on Google Play and 10 apps on Apple's App Store that engaged in ad fraud and collectively had 13 million installs. Apple and Google removed them. Oh, okay, that's good. Happy ending. A look at NVIDIA's issues, including crypto mining demand collapsing and GPUs flooding secondhand markets and opportunities, including gaming and data centers. Yeah, because of the new Ethereum setup, there's not so much of a demand for that. So now we're going to have a whole flood on the market. Review of the $700 AMD new Ryzen 9 with 16 cores. You have to thank the crypto miners for pushing all of the graphics stuff. The UK's ICO could fine TikTok £27 million after provisionally finding that TikTok may have breached the data protection rules by failing to protect children's data. Gee, I wonder what they're doing with that children's data. London police arrest a 17-year-old and charge him with the computer misuse and breach of bail offenses. Some speculate he is behind the Uber and Rockstar hacks. There you go. Those are your big boring headlines for today, September 27th.
Did you get the Oracle has been fined for taking part in corruption again? I'm driving my car, so I can't send you the link right now. But Oracle did just get slapped with $25 million in a fine for corruption. I don't have the details in my head, but it was a wall banging in the data sector.
Here we go. Oracle settles SEC charges over secret India payments. Oracle agreed to pay $2 million fine to settle the U.S. SEC, the Security Exchange Commission, charges that India subsidiary secretly set aside money used to make unauthorized payments to phony vendors in India. Thursday's settlement, which involved no admission of wrongdoing, resolved charges that the world's third largest software company violated the Federal Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. The SEC said the employees directed the distributions to make unauthorized payments to local vendors. Now, here's the problem, as Saudamini will confirm shortly. There's still an element of doing business in India which involves T-money. And big international companies have to come to some way of dealing with this. There are and this is not an Indian issue exclusively. This is a a big part of doing business in many countries is little um, kickbacks, essentially, for access. And this is how business happens. This is how the sausage gets made on a day to day basis in many parts of the world. It's so common that for even Scandinavian companies where fraud is essentially non existent, and I'll use an example like Skanska, which is like one of the biggest construction companies in the world. Skanska goes to countries all over the place and builds bridges and railways and everything else and ports. And one of my family, in fact, kind of like my brother's wife, used to be a head of Skanska, and every time we get together, she tells hilarious stories of exactly the nature of these bribes and that she had to participate in as a Swede, which to a Swede is a very peculiar situation to find yourself in, to be having to deal with all of these bribes, as Johan will tell you. So, yeah, we call it corruption and bribery and whatnot, but it's still how much of the world works. And yeah, you need funds, these little secret funds to channel monies to secret little, pockets that need to be filled to make the sausage and the spice happen. Okay, yeah, well, and then the US says you can't do that. And so, anyway, secret India payments. Oracle settles SEC charges over secret India payments. Notably, one of the the details of this settlement is that there's no admission of wrongdoing, because in their mind, is this really wrongdoing in this part of the world that where it's expected to happen? Anyway, just my 2 cents on that without really diving deep into it. But it's an important aspect for people who live in countries that don't. And there's a lot of countries, thankfully, that don't have to, bother with this kind of stuff. So count your blessings there. But it's in much of the world, it's still a
Hey
very.
Tyler, can I jump in on that? The admission of wrongdoing is that they did violate the FCPA. So it doesn't. You're right that the bribery goes on in China and India and everywhere else, but every single vendor contract of every large corporation has 2 pages of terms around this that says you won't do it. And so the wrongdoing is that they did violate the FCPA. However, part of the settlement, just to get there faster, is no liability, and they pay a settlement. But another thing that's important here is that uh, Oracle is the likely person or entity to take over TikTok US, right? Both hosting it and the control of the algorithm, which I don't know that Oracle's any better than TikTok, honestly. And it's interesting because they're not a big data algorithm company. So are they even the capable ones? It's like who are they paying to get that contract? But anyway, so I wonder if this is going to end up being at all relevant in those negotiations. So just a little bit more spice.
Thank you for that. Anybody? Now we're going to go to the tweets. Did anybody have a
Cal
hot?
Patel is here. You wanted to ask him to comment
Oh,
about the Best Buy metaverse, right?
if you say his name 3 times,
Cal Patel, Cal Patel,
Yeah,
Cal
no,
Patel.
I came in just because I was listening on the Twitter thing. Uh, I and you were so funny about Walmart. I just came in to tell you that you were just so. I was laughing out loud. You just it's like now I have the opportunity from Thailand to do exactly that on the metaverse, and
yes,
it's just like thank you very much, Walmart. Thank you for
Walmart.
globalizing that experience.
Yes. Now the metaverse has arrived. Now that
I can have the
now
shittiest experiences globalized, right?
globally, from anywhere,
So
from the comfort of a beach, you
anywhere,
can
right? You
now
have a
have
while
beautiful
wearing
beach to look at.
Crocs.
you can now buy semi-automated rifles in your Crocs from the comfort of a beach in Indonesia.
You can even cruise through a fully stacked, or maybe not even fully stacked, no stock that you really want. Best Buy store right in the middle of like Shanghai,
We
or you're
really are
enjoying
living in the
yourself
best
there.
of times.
This is just great. You can just have really bad service, your computer not repaired. but you can do it anywhere in the world on the
Can I,
metaverse.
can I get
Love it.
into a fight with the Walmart greeter in the metaverse?
I don't
How
know.
would it be on Black Friday? That would be an interesting experience.
It's boxing gloves. You just literally, it's a game, isn't it? It's just a game. Let's get to the front. Hey, they could do that. They could just have a Black Friday game. How do you get to the, that's the game. That's the marketing ploy. That's,
And
oh,
yeah,
that's,
do you have what it takes? It's kind of like supermarket sweep, where you see how much stuff you can get out of the store in 5 minutes.
Could I use a aimbot for it?
Oh, you mean you can grab it in the metaverse, and if you really grab it, and then they will send it to your house directly? That's nice.
the winner. Yeah, the winner. Like if you get,
Oh, right.
5 minutes to get every single, the best value products, let's just say, right? The best
Or
value
if,
products,
or if
five
you just make
minutes.
it out and there's carnage.
Or you could do a Price is Right model where you people have to compete to guess the prices of the products. That would be a fun Best Buy. Is Best Buy working on that to the best of your knowledge?
They should be. Like it's the biggest thing that's going to happen. It's the biggest. What the heck is Corey doing? Get on it now. This is it.
But what I
Why
mean,
wouldn't you? Why would you not? And then you can have, you can have different grades, like just like the Geek Squad agents have. You have like the different grades. You're there for 1 year, 2 years, but you can actually give this to your customers. This person
in
has
all seriousness, though,
basically.
Cal,
Sorry.
no. In all seriousness, though, there must be somebody in Best Buy somewhere in Minneapolis, I assume, who's thinking about these issues with the metaverse, and I imagine that the real opportunity is not so much in VR, but perhaps more in AR, where when you're walking down the street in your new Snapchat glasses, or we just read the article about the new Nreal glasses from China that have a iPhone compatibility of some sort, and if you could identify objects in AR with your AR glasses, Best Buy could say, do you want to buy that, item that you're looking at on Best Buy right now? You can just click the rim of your glasses, and we can, put it in your shopping cart for you. I have to think something like
Yeah,
that.
they have an emerging channel kind of group or people who care about that, looking into how to constantly sell through the different ways that's going to happen. But the problem is this: they're too large and too vested in the existing asset base, and so and I know some of there'll be people looking at it, right? But when it comes down to every year you have to decide, or every 6 months, the management team has to decide how much substantive money goes into the new space, right? How much substantive. You can play little experiments all the time. You can do a 50 experiments. And the problem is all the newspapers and all the discussions you hear, they're picking up the experiments, right? And it seems like, oh, look at Walmart doing this, or look at Best Buy doing this, or look at XYZ doing this, or Amazon particularly. Everyone's always picking up their experiments, but they're smart because they have a lot of experiments going on, and then somewhere they're consolidating the experiments and scaling them like crazy somewhere else with a different model, right? So they're taking the learning of the cashless store and maybe for example, putting it into Whole Foods. Best Buy has been they'll experiment this, and they'll be playing around. You might even see a couple of headlines. You'll see different things, but the challenge will be, when do they cut loose of stop opening. They're not opening many more stores now, but stop investing in existing stores by X% and take this new channel on. And the problem is that nobody makes those kind of bets when they're a public company, unless they're either Amazon or Google, and even they're going to do less and less of that, right? So it all falls down to the startups that actually approach Best Buy, and this is what I'd say, and hustle Best Buy, find the right people, and get a contract with them, and then get Best Buy experimenting to that, and then get into the papers and get some traction around that to get more investment. So normally what happens with these things. So, for example, in these spaces, of course, they're looking at it. There's some very, very smart people at Best Buy, right, and care about it, and they're looking at it, and they're probably imagining things that we haven't imagined today that Best
Right.
Buy could do, right, or could extend their brand into, right.
Well,
Um,
I'm wondering
but it's
if
yeah.
the
Go ahead.
Geek Squad, if I could wear AR glasses, look at the back of my device, and a Geek Squad member could see in VR what I'm looking at in AR and help me fix it remotely. Like tell me where to plug in the cable and hey, take out this cable here and plug it in here without actually having to drive over.
That's they're probably doing some remote work, and then they're going to move into this space. But that's a good opportunity. You know,
I
I'm not going to put a lot of money into Best Buy doing that at scale right now, right? Not because I have any insider information, right? I'm not saying that,
Right.
but I just understand big companies and where they stand in the context of where they are. However, Tyler, what you just said there is a proposition that needs to happen, right? So if somebody creates that proposition, everything really like frictionless and it works, and then they get Best Buy to scale it for them, that's going to work. That's how it works, right?
Right.
They're not going to be able to kind of get it frictionless themselves, right? So I think you and I talked about ages ago, one of your friends in Sweden working on something, but things like that, where they actually get this thing started up working. This is why I think particularly now, uh, you know, current context, startups can really, really think through like what is Best Buy gonna, what could Geek Squad do, and assume they're not gonna do it, and build a business, and then get Best Buy to do the partnership with Best Buy, right? Or anyone else, right? Walmart, Best Buy, anyone who cares about customer service or computer repair or whatever, right? But then go and get them and use their assets to scale like crazy, and then you get your scale. But then and they're not going to do it, and even now, even more so now, because they're all stuck with the downturn in the economy. So they're protecting existing revenue streams so they can pay the shareholders the dividends that they promised, right? So that's the problem with a public company. But I'm not being not optimistic about Best Buy. These are really good ideas. And I think Geek Squad to do 1,000 different things, but it needs the startups to go to them, even Geek Squad, right? Because they're a startup that we brought in, right? It was something that we brought into the company and scaled. They're a classic example of Best Buy wouldn't have done Geek Squad. We bought it in at like $3 or $4 million and scaled it to what it is now, right? So, yeah.
I have another view of this. One of the things here, there was a handsome tech brow somewhere here that spoke very warmly about this with having mom and pop shops selling things on TikTok videos, etc., in a foreign country somewhere. And the thing is here that by having Walmart now, that's not the high quality chain in some aspect, but the thing is that you could probably go into a Walmart VR world and actually put up your own little drop shipping within it without even asking our friends at Walmart for allowance for it. You get my drift, you Andan?
After a while, the Walmart guys would like bring the security and get you out there. But you could do that for a couple of days, Johan. You know that, and you could test it out. I like that. But I think you make a bigger point that all these big guys are going to get disrupted anyway. Like it's only a question of time. It's only a question of time that bits of their businesses will just get uh, death by 1,000 cuts. They'll just get taken out. And the number one thing that to the point that Tyler's been making over the last couple of years, and in general, what you've got is brands can be created by very, very, very strong, influential, honest, ethical people, right? They can create brands. I'm saying ethical on purpose because sustainability comes with integrity, right? You can do everything for like 6 months and then you're dead, right? If you're not sustain. So there are people who can create their own brands. They have brands. They're maybe already famous because they're good singers, or they may be famous because they talk about technology a lot, right? Like Tyler. Tyler, I don't see why you can't create your own headphones, right?
Right.
But things like that where you can basically reverse engineer the entire supply chain. If it's a service, you can reverse engineer the service chain. You start from scratch, so you have no orthodoxy, right? And and then you can use the channels. And what you'll find then is some of the bigger players, as they start to lose revenue, will want to either buy you or partner with you. At that point, you can choose. You can say either I'm going to do that, or I'm going to build this thing out myself. If I was right now with a mandate to grow Best Buy, which is which I don't have, but if I did have that now, what I would do is I would take every new growth space like this that an innovator comes up with, and I would cast it out to get all the unmet needs, like the Geek Squad agents themselves would know, right? And you get all these different places, and you get like 5, 6, 7 absolutely strong influencers that can build the brands, and you give them a space inside. So Best Buy becomes a platform for these influencers.
Right.
They don't have to do the shitty work. They don't have to do the logistics. They don't have any of
Right.
that, right?
Right.
But we give them the whole platform to get their brand out there and all the implementation. But when the consumers, they're trusting the TikTok video person, not TikTok. I'm not a big fan of TikTok, but the video guy or the or whatever who's basically sharing the product or getting enthusiasm or talking about it or Ben talking about sustainability product, right? That a solar panel that makes sense or whatever, and they're getting the influence from there, and the whole logistics chain is the big machine behind the scenes, right? It's like Mr. Beast or whatever, right? McDonald's can be the engine behind Mr. Beast. He's not going to scale it at the level McDonald's does, right? Best Buy can be that platform behind that, or any other big company. That's the way to think about it now. I'm less about can Best Buy innovate, because I don't think any, and it's not about Best Buy at all. I big fan, love the people there. As you guys know, I always talk about them. But there's something systemically wrong about big companies innovating in today's environment. They can't do it. It's really hard. And so that's the way I would think about it. But those are very good ideas. I mean, that Geek Squad thing you're talking about, it makes total sense. You got to, if you have a trusted brand and they guide you through the repair work, they can even teach you how to be a better repair person, right? Yourself. You can repair these iPhones, which are more repairable now, right? They can teach you that, right? And then you have a better trust level with them. And there's so much like that you can do, remotely or through new technologies that might emerge. More so than better than just walking around the aisle, right? Like you said, there's so much more to be done.
Okay. Here we go. So there's a lot of really good links as usual. People are tweeting in, so thank you everyone who's sending all these in. And I'm not even up to the most last hour, and I got a browser full of tabs open here. Stephanie McGann Jansen sent in a ton of tweets, and like this awesome one from the NBA, the National Basketball Association, has a new app, and it introduces a TikTok-like vertical video feed. And what's happening here is not only the social media apps are trying to copy TikTok, all the app makers are starting to copy TikTok and integrate these vertical scrolling feeds, because clearly TikTok has shown that's what keeps people using the app. So watch out for Tinder is likely to take a page out of this book as well in the not so distant future. Everybody eventually, it seems like it's going to become a bit of a standard when you see articles like this where the NBA is switching to a TikTok like vertical scroll. And one of the largest prison tech providers in the US seized $121 million from prisoners' prepaid accounts after deeming those accounts inactive. The FCC is proposing guidelines to make sure people in prison can keep their funds safe. Really interesting thought that never occurred to me is what happens to your Starbucks points or your whatever points and your, all of your online accounts when you get sent away for 5 to 10 to 20 years, or your Best Buy points or what have you. Should prisoners have rights with regard to expiring points, your airline miles, for example? Anyway, next is, as pandemic measures are lifted, social media use has declined with one exception. The Wall Street Journal reported that Instagram is faltering in its bid to keep up with TikTok, the wildly popular Chinese-owned video sharing app. So post COVID, social media is dropping with the exception of TikTok. Even though Instagram's trying to doing everything it can to copy TikTok at the moment, it's still not able to keep up. So Thomas Tong found a really interesting one about a new chemical to kill weeds, a new herbicide solution, which was inspired by a cholesterol medicine. Researchers
Kills your
discovered,
heart. Now it can kill the plants.
the researchers discovered a promising new herbicide in for plants with the potential to provide new solutions. It says that when applied to plants, the enzyme is disabled from making important fats and hormones and vitamins, causing the plant to die. And that's in some ways what these cholesterol medicines do, is they stop you from making the fats that clog your arteries. And so now if you stop the fats that the plants need to survive, then it dies. There we go. The Washington Post says that states are moving to penalize cyber flashing. Sending unwanted nudes online could get you fined or sued. And I think they missed a golden opportunity to mention what they're really talking about is dick pics and the phenomena of young men taking photos of their junk and sending it to people, calling it cyber flashing. And now you'll get sued for cyber flashing. And a fire breaks out at the Tesla Gigafactory in Berlin. A major fire broke out after a significant pile of cardboard and wood caught fire in the factory's recycling.
Keep in mind, this is one of the largest buildings on Earth, so anything that happens anywhere near one of the largest buildings on Earth will make the news at this point.
Thomas found this one. An AI shrinks 100,000 equation quantum problem to just 4 equations. The AI worked for weeks and went through thousands of equations in the Hubbard model to shrink to 4 equations that gave the same outcome. The compression did not change the accuracy of the outcome and could help revolutionize investigation systems in the field of quantum physics. Well, once we get into quantum computing, quantum-powered AIs, and apply that to mathematics, we might be able to solve a whole lot of these math problems that have stumped humans, for eons, and that will be very interesting.
So you think we'll give PhDs to AI entities, right? Like they'll just discover something new, but it won't take them 4 years to do the work, right? And then Oxford University will say, okay, you now this AI entity, whichever way you want to call it, this program, this AI, is now reached the standard of our PhD from King's Christ Church College, and now we've got this status. I don't know, like.
You have to count the number of floating point operations it performed to get there. So this thing has now done 1 exaflops and it's now qualified. I'm joking, really.
No, exactly. But you've got different hurdles, right? And then you've basically, but it can actually, let's say it's talking back, so it can actually do a viva, right? It can do the questions and the answers and pass the stages, right? In
What
which
is going to
case,
be interesting is the explainable AI interacting with this sort of thing, being able to explain what it's doing and how it's doing it. That's the kind of that gets interesting. Where it's not just, hey, the magic computer came with the magic solution and it works, but how did it do that? When you start having like the being able to say, here's what I did here and here's why I did it. Now we're
no,
going to get
that's
to where
it.
it's
Yeah,
really
but do
interesting.
you think that would happen then, Chris? That could happen, right?
It's actually it's some of the open AI things, some of the things happening with like some of the GPT-3. It's absolutely shocking how like some of the math problems they're doing on that. It's relatively simple, the questions they're asking it, but the fact that it's able to interpret this as a general case model it is a very strong indicator of some of the things that are going to be coming over the next few years, where it's not just a, hey, we have programmers program these things, but machines that are able to solve things themselves and then articulate the solutions. It's going to be crazy.
We also had the 10,000 hours before you're an expert metric. So what is the equivalent of 10,000 hours in computer speak?
That's actually a really good question, because and one of the big challenges with AI is that we can train them to be very smart, but the simulated number of eons worth of time, we're talking like centuries worth of training time for some relatively simple things. However, what's cool is once you have the solution, you can go back and you can redesign the parameters of your simulation, so actually put more of the intelligence into the environment, into your initial starting conditions, to make it take less time each time. So while right now computers learn relatively slowly compared to the same amount of data compared to humans, the fact that they're able to accomplish that as a general case learning mode, it means that there are now starting to be parameters that we can actually start optimizing that, so it takes less and less time, and yeah, it gets fun.
Okay, next up, the Saudamini found this one. Instagram increases the story time limit to 1 minute. It was previously 15 seconds. And it used to get broken up into separate segments, and now you can have 1 minute stories because TikTok. That's why. And Jeff G found this one on CNN that the U.S. Navy sends its most advanced warship to East Asia. Gee, I wonder why we're sending our most advanced warships to East Asia. East Asia.
We like having $3 billion missile targets.
What's over there in East Asia? Is there an island over there or something?
Coconut Beach.
I
Some shit's going down in Coconut Beach. They heard about
That's
it.
South Asia.
Is you're
Yeah,
not talking about Japan?
no, I think there's another island south of Japan, slightly west of Japan.
You mean with the T, but not Thailand, but Taiwan, but some
Right.
Westerners always mistook it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Chinese
confusing.
Taipei.
Yeah, Formosa. The South African
And,
teams.
and oh, I'm just want to say your vice president now is in Japan, so
Maybe it's just him, just like saying, "Hey, I just like to have some special, like it's like like when you roll up like to the Oscars, and you have like your limo on the red carpet, or maybe this is just the
I'd
diplomatic
like my
version going,
boat to follow me.
just
Oh,
show up
right.
and have your aircraft
That,
carrier."
that's a very good point. That might be a security thing. Next up, Saudamini found this one that South African teens skip school to chase risky crypto dreams. That sounds great. That sounds well thought out. John
I
first heard
mean,
of
one's lifetime student debt in America, but they're a little different overseas, I imagine.
when the teenager came across slick YouTube videos and Facebook posts. So he's dropping out of school to be a crypto trader. And the BBC has one about Tim Cook, quoted as saying, "There's no good excuse for the lack of women in tech." Yeah, that's the quote. 15 hours ago, Apple chief executive Tim Cook says there are still not enough women at the table at the world's tech firms, including his own.
It's not very hard. He can actually just, he can he can actually promote some women to very senior positions at Apple, like tomorrow. At one level, it's like he's got to do that. Like, I'm sick and tired of senior executives, and I like Tim, by the way. Tim's one of the best executives out there, and I've seen that article. And when I read it, I shared it with my family. She's my daughter's into tech and a whole bunch of things, and we talk about women in tech. And you know what? But if you look at the Apple senior team, like two levels, right? Both levels, it's he's been there for years and years. So that's where you start. And just because they reach the glass ceiling, they all reach the glass ceiling, right? And it's there even in tech companies now. So bit frustrating. But by the way, can I just say something quickly, Tyler? That London office that Apple's building is going to be so cool. It feels like London's going to be a big center for them, right?
Yeah,
It's in the Battersea power station that
yeah.
was, and he's doing
People
the
who
rounds in London right now. And I think London's going to be quite a I'm getting signals that he really wants to make London like a second headquarters for Apple.
Yeah,
But very
just for
interesting. Sorry, side point.
people who haven't been to London, this building is, you can't miss it on the, on the kind of London visually. It's so pronounced, on the edge of the river there. You can kind of see it from anywhere if you're anywhere on the waterfront in London, and it's kind of a um, nice place to hang out. Anyways, anyway. I don't know what the deal is with Apple and Battersea, but did they purchase the entire building? Because that's a huge building.
Yeah, I think they have, or at least a big chunk of it. And then it's also got shops, and it's like it's going to be a big um, kind of a hub, right? And it kind of, it's like there'll be startups there, there'll be everything, right? And he's doing the rounds because the article that you just read out is when he's meeting some female entrepreneurs and some stars, some celebrities that use one of the platforms that they're creating, music platforms. And so he's doing the rounds in London, like it's pretty central to a big chunk of it. And I'm also hearing rumors that that Apple's really thinking about like how they truly have not just their Cupertino one, but they actually have a few others. I if I were them, I'd put another one in Singapore like tomorrow, and just find a few places where they distribute their headquarters. But it's interesting.
Indeed. So, what do we got next here? Next one is, speaking of London, from Reuters. Karam found this one. Sterling, the British sterling pound collapses as investors fly into dollars. Investors piled into dollars and out of almost everything else, spooked by the prospect of high interest rates. Yeah, precisely. And more so the Turkish lira, even the Swedish kroner, Japanese yen, even more so than the British pound, actually. But a lot of attention on the British pound because it had a significant decline in the past 24 hours. But the others have been declining for the past 6 months. And it's a great time to be traveling as an American. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that much. Especially in Turkey. Holy smokes. So, the next is from Aram, that Elon Musk's humanoid robot faces concerns from experts. Tesla job listings show that Tesla plans to use thousands of humanoid robots in its factories. Robot experts say deploying robots for household use is much harder than in factories that have very repetitive tasks, which is obviously true. But the robot revolution is just getting started, as China well knows, as fast food well knows. Miso Robotics out of Pasadena is making the Flippy fryer, which is passed all kinds of tests and is picking up a lot of steam. And watch out for the future of robots as inflation kicks in, as the baby boomers retire. The biggest generation, the biggest workforce in American history goes off into the sunset. Um, the price of labor was set very low in the 60s and 70s because the baby boomers was a massive demographic bubble, which is now retiring. And in being this massive generational bubble, demographic bubble, it lowered the price of labor so much that they needed two people in the family to work to make ends meet, which doubled the number of people in the workforce, which further lowered the price of labor. So the price of labor through the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and even into the 90s got so low, and it has stayed low. And now that the baby boomers are retiring and the birth rates have declined, and we're now in terminal demographic inverted pyramids, and there's a lack of people to fill in the gaps while the economies grow. There's more demand and less supply, and you're going to have runaway inflation, and labor rates are going to increase for the foreseeable future. And here come the robots, as Japan well knows. and it's going to be intense, as Amazon well knows.
So in terms of humanoid robots, I was, concerned or kind of had many questions. And somebody, like a friend of mine who is going to the AI um, event on September 30th in California, he got the invite yesterday. I had few questions if they get to ask the questions because it's more like a technical event. My question was if these Optimus robots will be um, using the data from the FSD, the Tesla car, the full self-driving, and the cameras and all the information or data that have been collected by the FSD, would that be available to these robots? And the answer was yes. Also, how the pressure sensors, are there going to be any pressure sensors on fingertips and joints and feet? Also, how these robots will be, whether they be able to drive a car or not. So whenever this event happens, which is like end of this month, hopefully these questions would be answers. Why these questions are important for me, because I wanted to gauge if these humanoid robots would be able to assist human beings, geriatric patients especially, or in terms of providing them physical assistance, raising them up, lifting them up, bringing them in the car, driving them to the hospital if needed, things like that. I'm not sure in terms of the pressure sensors on the fingertips, but a lot of the mechanistic, perceptive issues, perceptive signals are the most difficult. Otherwise, they are using the neural networks and the cameras and the FSD related data for these humanoid robots like Optimus. So, in terms of functionality, these are not just going to be the factory robot, but more than that. And I wanted to know the extent of their capabilities, which we'll find out soon.
So, this is a coincidence too good not to share. I just got done with a little mild rant about robotics, and I specifically mentioned Miso Robotics out of Pasadena, who make the Flippy, which I mentioned. Now, I look to my left on my computer screen to my Twitter feed, and I see a tweet from Cal Patel, who's on stage, from 2 hours ago, and the headline says Chipotle Mexican Grill, which is a very popular Mexican food franchise uh, in the US, will test something called Chippy, a robotic tortilla chip maker. Now, because the name of the robot is Chippy, it caught my attention. Well, it's interesting on its own merits that it's, another fast food dish restaurant in the US using robotics. But due to the name Chippy, it particularly caught my attention because Miso Robotics, which I'm very interested in, their most popular robot is called Flippy. And I happen to know they have another robot called Sippy because Flippy is being used for making french fries and flipping hamburgers, and Sippy is being used to do the drinks. And so this robot being called Chippy makes me wonder, is this another Miso Robotics new robot that I haven't heard of? So I opened the article. I just tweeted it to the Tech News Twitter account. So it's a retweet of Cal Patel's tweet. And sure enough, it says Chipotle Mexican Grill is moving one step closer to having a robot make its tortilla chips. The burrito chain said Tuesday it will test Chippy, an autonomous kitchen assistant made by Miso Robotics, next month in a restaurant in Fountain Valley, California. Chipotle has already tested Chippy's abilities to make and season its tortilla chips with salt and lime at its headquarters innovation hub in Irvine, California. Yada yada yada. So here comes Miso Robotics, a cute little startup out of Pasadena, California. Uh, watch out!
But by
Wow.
the way, you know that does Miso do the coffee thing? Because I know Cheryl had a startup that she brought in a while ago,
Yes.
and then there was another one that is in San Francisco. I saw it in the San Francisco airport. I think Jason
Yes.
talks about it a lot. But
Yes.
I reckon that coffee is going to be like basically automated so quickly. Three,
Right.
four, 3, 4 years, right? Lots of different players. By the way, Cheryl, I saw the one in Singapore as well. It was in the big museum thing.
Yeah,
Um,
they're doing
yeah,
quite
yeah, I
well
saw
now,
the actual
actually.
machine. I saw the actual machine. It's quite cool. Yeah. Yeah,
Cafe.
but
They've
I'm
had a
wondering
coffee
if
machine
Miso's
at
doing that too. Yeah.
Austin Airport, but I think it's only working 40% of the time or something. So reliability becomes, especially in these high
Oh,
exposure areas, important.
is that one of those Gen Z robots?
No, I think it's also the
Yeah, I
business
think it's got too
model.
many piercings and tattoos. It won't work all the time.
Yeah,
Doesn't want
I
to
think
come
it's
in.
also the business model. So what Keith did for the Ella Barista is, of course, he got good deals from the train station, right? Starting from JR East, and then not Singapore MRT is actually support. I mean, invested in him as well. I mean, so he is actually in many of the stations, and also he is invited for many events, international events. So I think things are looking pretty good for him. That's good.
Yeah. Well, as the cost of labor keeps going up and the robotics don't, due to inflation, uh, those lines are going to cross, and it's going to be cheaper to do robotics for many things, and that's going to lower the more due to scaling. Once they start, making tens of thousands of these, the cost will drive down, just like flat screen TVs, just like every home gadget you ever bought. The more that people buy them, the cost goes down on them. So you're going to have the cost of the robots go down and the cost of the human labor is going up. Those lines cross at some point, and then it's just going to exacerbate the differential between those two cost points, and then it's game over. And
Well, I think
simultaneously, the ease of use of the robots, just like the ease of use of any device, is going to get more and more refined over time, and it's going to go from, just like you weren't a blogger in the first generation of using typekit or typepad and all, you waited until Blogger came out or Twitter came out, the really brain dead simple version of blogging, and you'll probably wait until the brain dead for easy, simple, robotic programming app comes out so that you can, make a grilled cheese sandwich at home. But rest assured, the difficulty now is actually quite high. There's still quite a barrier to entry to training these robots to replace, humans in your business. But guaranteed, like all tech innovations of all time, that barrier is going to eventually, that gap is going to narrow over time and eventually disappear. So I'm sorry to whoever I interrupted.
no,
There's
I think the other
also
thing I was going to say is that probably get an acceleration after the law in California. Raising the hourly rates for food service employees. But there's a bigger problem here. The interesting thing about robotics is, I mean, we've been doing robotics for over 25 years. They've been out there for a long time, specifically in warehousing and distribution. There's a bigger reason why it hasn't gone further, and that's maintenance. I mean, I have a automated retrieval system in a warehouse, 10, 15 years ago, and my problem wasn't that it didn't save money, didn't reduce labor. The problem is when that thing broke down, I had nobody that could fix it. So you would have to, when you bought that ASRS or whatever, the automated retrieval system, you had to hire engineers to work and be around, because if that thing broke, you're shut down, because you build your warehouse in a manner where the aisles are very narrow, and a worker can't get up there because I'm using a robot to retrieve the goods. If that robot breaks down, I've stopped shipping. So imagine that. I mean, the whole joke about the ice cream machines at McDonald's. Imagine a completely automated Chipotle that has a, hey, we're shut down because the robot broke.
By the way, just now I mentioned about the business model, right? For Kif, the robot barista in Singapore, he don't sell the robot machine. Actually, he don't sell the barista. It's actually an AI IoT company. He supply all the consumables. So wherever Ella goes, yeah, they'll be supporting the supply chain.
Isn't Tyler? Isn't that quite what was being said just now? I think it was Phil that if the robots are going to take over a whole lot of different manual jobs and stuff, functions and so on, then the fact that they need to be maintained and repaired, etc., that'll require human input and technology experience and expertise, and that would be a way of, you know, jobs won't be replaced so much as moved on.
Exactly. That's what
Yep.
I was going to share earlier too, that yes, robots are limited by, first of all, energy. So if the energy cost is going up or there is interruption in electric or whatever charging system that they charge with, then of course they shut down. And second, they need constant maintenance and repair for that, unless they have automated robots who are repairing themselves or other robots repairing these robots. We will be limited,
That would be
but
ideal.
that would be ideal, but
Yeah.
still, all of these robots would be dependent on energy sources. So unless we have unlimited energy sources, we will be limited in terms of how much these robots can function. Since
Well,
energy costs are going up and energy is production is kind of in trouble right now.
I mean, I think, you know, we've had, and you guys have seen, I'm sure, in automotive, we've had robotics for forever. And the thing is, you have to have, you know, you got a robot that costs you $150,000. Well, you can't buy one. You have to buy several so that when one breaks down, you can bring the other one online and keep the line going. Well, now when you were talking about labor, so I may have eliminated a couple jobs, but I also now have to find an engineer, a $150,000 a year engineer that can be at that plant. And one of the problems that we find in logistics is that, I can unload a truck with a robot. The reason why you don't see that happening is because I can get that robot for 150,000 to unload those trucks, but one time it breaks down, I've shut down the warehouse because I can't find people that know how to repair them.
So it's
And that's
almost like a
why they
different
are.
kind of.
So there is a huge dependency on labor, even for the robotics. So Elon can do that out there, but you know he's not gonna. You know, if you need 20 Geek Squad guys to tell you how to plug in your, you know, your computer, imagine somebody. You know, you
But
have a robot at home, and it
there's
breaks down.
already there's already like a email or text or Twitter whatever going around for the AI Day for recruitment, and they are calling in for anybody who is expert in robotics or engineers who can help them with this. And many spots are open right now, so anybody who have expertise and interested can apply. So
I
they
think
are
we all
recruiting.
struggle with that. There's not enough people in this country. I think that's why, you know, the whole immigration policy is important here in the U.S. There's not enough people in this country with that type of expertise. I mean, we're always looking for data scientists to work with some of the AI we do. You can't find them. They're not out there. And even if you're willing to pay whatever, you know, obviously they're going to go to a bigger company than us, more than likely. But you can't even find them to even ask them. So that's the
Isn't
biggest
this an
problem.
Absolutely, but isn't this a great example of where systems thinking, strategic planning, and future thinking, really needs to come into its own? Because it sounds like a new mode of logistics that really needs to be thought through, because the idea of providing technicians to actually repair the robot so that the line can be maintained as such, there sounds to be a whole scope of new businesses that could be developed there, really thinking across the whole of the spectrum.
Well, I think that's what we sort of do in the logistics space. But what I'm saying is, it's not old technology. The robotics, we've had them for years. One of the biggest development was the robotics company. I think it was called Kiva. I forgot what the name of it. Anyways, Amazon bought them, but even then, the robots that they were basically bringing a rack to the employees so that their productivity or pieces per hour would go up. When those broke down, they had to have a whole stock of additional robots that could take their place, and they just had engineers sitting in a corner working on repairing the ones that were breaking down on a regular basis. So it's not a question of is the technology out there. There's
Yeah, but
already a different mindset of how to
there
do.
is a
You know, you don't
difference.
you don't need a person unloading a truck. There's really no need to do that. In
There's
this
a
day and
Absolutely.
age, right?
There's a
But
difference there, Phil.
go
Just
ahead.
like the Tesla cars can be updated remotely and the software can be fixed for many different, well, there are limitations, but still. the remote capabilities of software updates and having a new, kind of bug fixes or whatever and repair can be done remotely as well. So the
Well,
engineers
software is
don't
a little
have.
bit, in this space at least, my experience has been that software is easier than the hardware. They're dealing with the hardware. The hardware wears out over time. There has to be maintenance, and it's not as easy as sending an update. I'm not saying updates are easy. Doing updates, over-the-air updates, or periodic updates to software is very hard. We know because we have to do version updates on all our software, and you break stuff
Yeah, so
all the
that's
time.
why the companies matter and the way their designs are, that matters too. Because, all companies are different in terms of complications of their design or their vision of simplification and how easy it is to maintain these machines.
Yeah.
Like Tesla
Now,
cars are kind of very easy to maintain because of the simplicity. So I'm hoping the same kind of mindset for the Optimus as well.
I think we're going to see some of this with Tesla, to be honest. And I think you guys have probably seen recent news where Tesla is now becoming mature enough that you're starting to see some of the maintenance issues with their cars. People blowing up their cars because Tesla said, "Oh yeah, the battery replacement is 25,000," or people who get locked out of their Tesla and can't get in because the battery died and it's only a couple years old. Things like that. We're going to see more and more of that as these Tesla cars age, and that is the biggest issue that we have with technology. In logistics and supply chain, the only reason that we haven't been able to do robotics going back 20 years from now is that barrier. And also, supply chain's never, we're the bastard child of most companies. There's never
Phil,
a chief supply chain officer you've never heard of sitting at the board. You know what I mean?
no. Yeah, Phil, are you aware of how much down the pipeline this goes? Because should colleges or even technical schools or whatever they're called nowadays have this sort of in their thought processes for preparing for the future? The idea that maybe even down to apprenticeships, there needs to be people and technical capabilities to work the streams as we go along. I mean, sure, robots will take over some very manual things, but we need to train. And I don't know, the schools and things are listening.
No, I think. Well, I think a lot of us try to help out and do internships, and I know some of the larger companies certainly are, support sponsor the schools, and do things to try to get people to come into AI and come into into data science and come into these areas. It's just not enough for what we're trying to do, and as fast as technology is moving forward, there's just not enough people coming out of the schools with the education we need. And not only that, I mean, other than we talk about places like MIT, who I love, and some of these other schools, but you go to other schools and they're teaching old technology, so they're behind the times. You know what I mean? So our education system is not necessarily up to speed with the technology that we're already deploying.
Exactly, because it's not really about the MIT level. I think we've got a lot of people who can come out of that system. But even the technical college, like there was a time when there weren't enough electricians and plumbers and that sort of
Yep.
in the whole ladder of careers and things. And then the governments over here in Britain started to encourage people to do apprenticeships or put it through technical colleges. But when technical colleges in the 70s and 80s got translated into universities, suddenly it became very highbrow. And you had to have a university qualification. But unfortunately, you still need those people downline who are able to actually, do some basic stuff, I mean,
Yep.
technical stuff.
So that's why, at Tesla, there is no degree requirement like for the job and stuff, as long as, you pass the test that they have, and it kind of gauges your capacity, intellect, or whatever, not your degree at all. So it doesn't matter. Your
Yep.
level of education doesn't matter. The way they recruit people is on the basis of how well they can perform or do certain things and tasks and write codes or whatever job they're looking for. So these people are kind of recruited at their own capacity level, not at the education uh, or
And
degree
that
or
it's
paper they hold.
smart.
So that's like a smart way of recruiting and also changing the way education works, because Tesla also, I mean, Elon Musk related, there is also a kind of an online program of education for these children who are very smart, intelligent, or ahead of their peers who can participate in these educational activities from the get-go, from the beginning, and then can be recruited. So so many different ways that this kind of futuristic mindset is changing how we relate and can arrive in future, shedding away these past, kind of restrictive systems which are not helping us at all now.
And I think there's not enough companies like Tesla that could get away with doing that. I mean, I think that's smart, but it's also very risky. You know, you're bringing people in with, I think as an employer, that's having a degree gives you a sense that that person has a basic set of knowledge, right? That's a reason why you want to make sure that they have that. So it's a huge risk. Tesla can afford to do it. I don't, the other 95% of the businesses in the United States probably can't.
You're absolutely right, Phil, because one of the practical experiences on the ground that I've seen is that people who've, I'm a great supporter of the apprenticeship scheme, internships, whatever you want to call it, that level of learning on the job, right? And being paid to learn on the job. Anyway, over here, the bosses of small companies are often reluctant to take these young people on because the mindset is so unacceptable that they find it hard to stick out an apprenticeship. And so therefore, if you don't have people coming up without that kind of degree behind them, you think you don't get the knowledge, the experience. But yet, if you train them up yourself, you're in a situation where this person is half-hearted. This person might abandon the course after 6 years. Oh no, I mean 6 months, and then maybe after a year, you've spent all that time and energy to bring them up, and then they disappear off to do another job or disappear somewhere. So it is dangerous, yes, but yeah, it's a mindset of
Yeah,
society. How are we going to face this issue?
yeah. That's, I think,
Okay.
going to be the biggest, and to wrap it up, that's probably going to be the biggest limiting factor to the advancement of technology in the U.S. is the ability. You still need the people. Thanks, Tyler.
Okay. So since we started today, there's been a massive amount of headlines regarding the undersea Russian pipelines, energy pipelines through the Baltic. Undersea blasts recorded at same time that the Russian to Germany gas pipelines were reported as leaking. Sweden's experts are reporting that they detected seismic activity that are a signature of blasts, and they said there's no question that there was explosions down there to both Nord Stream 1 and 2 simultaneously, removing any doubt that this is some kind of organic accident or something. This is obviously sabotage, as Poland's prime minister is saying. Today we faced an act of sabotage. We don't know all the details of what happened, but we see clearly that it's an act of sabotage related to the next step of the escalation of the situation in Ukraine, Poland's prime minister said at the opening of the new pipeline between Norway and Poland. Seismologists in Denmark and Sweden registered powerful blasts in the areas of the leaks on Monday. Sweden's National Seismology Center told public broadcaster SVT, uh, Sweden's biggest TV. It's like the BBC of Sweden, basically. German Geological Research Center also said a seismograph on the Danish island of Bornholm had twice recorded spikes of explosions, etc. And the fact that they're happening simultaneously. Oh, and there's more. Norway's largest oil and gas company, Equinor, said just a few days ago that it had informed authorities of its observations of unidentified drones flying near its production areas. So, guys, I'm starting to get the feeling that this Vladimir Putin guy is not really such a great guy after all. He's I know everyone likes to think he's amazing. He's so nice. He's so friendly. I'm having second thoughts. I'm really starting to have second thoughts about this guy. I'm not so sure he has all of our best interests in mind. And I think we should raise this issue. I think we should be willing to raise this serious question. I have doubts, and I'm expressing them. I'm just going to come right out and say it. I don't think he's a good guy. And if you're a European and you're worried about energy costs rising, boy, are they going to go up tomorrow. And rather than sit at home this winter and freeze your you know what, you can go ahead and leave the energy off and come down to Coconut Beach, where you don't need any energy to stay nice and warm. In fact, you don't even need energy to stay cool. We've got the ocean breeze here. Why don't you come on down? We'll take good care of you this winter, my European friends. Uh, so that's my little commercial for Coconut Beach today. So anyway, David who's from the Atlantic, kind of well-regarded political thinker, says if the reported maps of the explosions are correct, someone took great care to detonate the underwater gas pipeline just outside of NATO territory waters. Boy, this is such a riddle. This is such a conundrum. If we could just get to the bottom of why Botswana is blowing up European bloc. I shouldn't single out Botswana, and it could be Patagonia. I don't know. I'm just speculating. We may never know. We find all of this, but yeah. So what's next? We got a tweet from BB from South China Morning Post that China drafts regulations to delay streaming of all online concerts and shows. The delay would enable personnel assigned by internet platforms to conduct real-time supervision of online performances and block what they deem problematic.
In short, censorship.
I wonder what kind of things are on the do not stream list. So no more live streaming shows
Oh
unless it's
yeah,
delayed.
so there goes live commerce and live stream commerce.
No, the live commerce has already got a little delay, and they've got sensors and tools for moderating that.
Oh yeah.
And next up, Saudamini had one that WhatsApp call links are rolling out. 32 member group video calls being tested. And I'm retweeting that now so you can see. And I'm looking at a photo of a WeChat conversation where one person says, "Hey, you want to talk about this right now?" And then another person says, "Let's get everyone on a call and talk it through. Here's a link you can share in your group chat." And then there's a link, and everyone can click to join the call from the chat. So it's a link you can put in the chat for everyone to click on to join the call. That's cool. Kind of like that. And next up is the Nord Stream 2 pipeline that everyone's talking about. Ukraine accuses Russia of pipeline terror attack. Say what? Ukraine's accusing, they don't think it's Botswana or Patagonia. Get this, they think it's Russia. Ukraine has accused Russia of causing leaks in two major gas pipelines to Europe in what it has described as a terrorist attack. This is from BBC minutes ago. Ukrainian presidential advisor said the damage to Nord Stream 1 and 2 was an act of aggression towards the EU. He added that Russia wanted to cause pre-winter panic and urged the EU to increase military support for Ukraine. Seismologists reported underwater blasts before the leaks emerged. There's no doubt that these were explosions, said Bjorn Lund of Sweden's National Seismology Center. The operator of Nord Stream 1 said the undersea lines had simultaneously sustained unprecedented damage in one day, and said they're not able to determine when these will be able to be activated again. Conundrum. Very interesting. Okay, game on. So let's see what the energy markets look like tomorrow or in the next hour. Oh boy, Putin's going whole hog here. Okay, well, we'll leave you on that very happy thought. And we'll do it again manana, Wednesday, September 28th. Let's do it again. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Ben has a room in 10 minutes time, so please join him if you could.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Maybe
everyone.
it'll
Cheryl.
be
Hey,
more
Thank you,
like
Kyla.
Jonathan.
public